The following program is intended for a mature audience. Viewer discretion is advised.
Workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. Squidward Tentacles, 2001. In 1999, Nickelodeon started to air a show dedicated on one thing: destroying Western civilization. This cartoon is known by most as SpongeBob SquarePants. However, to the creator Stephen Hillenburg and the rest of the team behind the project, it was known as Goopka Bobka Dratney Shanty. If you can't tell, Goopka Bobka Dratney Shanty is the filthy commie himself, SpongeBob SquarePants. To the naked eye, SpongeBob SquarePants is not a communist cartoon. However, to anyone who has superior brain power such as myself, Stephen Hillenburg's plan to attempt to take over the American youth's mind in an attempt to make them into gulag workers becomes painfully obvious. There's many innuendos inserted in SpongeBob SquarePants that are meant to mold the young minds of American youth into money-hating, religion-slandering, filthy commies. SpongeBob himself is a representation of the typical proletariat worker who slaves for his capitalist overlord for no financial gain for himself. SpongeBob himself has the colors yellow and red on his character palette to represent the flag of the great fallen Soviet Union. On the contrary, Mr.Krabs has the colors red, white, and blue to represent America in the filthy greed of capitalism. Mr. Krabs treats his workers awfully. His workers are paid an average of $8 a year. However, sometimes this can fluctuate and they can make less, or they can make a generous $10 a year. Mr. Krabs' employees also work 9 hours a day, 365 days a year, meaning they earn less than a cent an hour. Mr. Krabs' employees also have no insurance, vacation time, or pension. Now, this might seem disturbing to most. Mr. Krabs is an awful person, but he does not actually treat his employees that horridly. You see, SpongeBob's world isn't portrayed to us through the way SpongeBob SquarePants sees the world. Instead, the show is shown through the perspective of a lazy, failed artist and clarinet player who just so happens to be the leader of the underground Bikini Bottom Communist Party. Hey you! Yeah, you! Do you like music? Do you have a friend who has an unclean car? Then Dumpster Man's the perfect song for you. Written by Nickelback cover artist Jeff Bojack, this song's the perfect song to play for your filthy fuck friend who will not clean their car. Dumpster Man is an embodiment of every man. The Wall Street Journal commented on Chef Bojack's new song and said that Dumpster Man's a fun, family-friendly song that everyone can enjoy, so buy it now! It's only $5.99 on the Apple Store. $5.99! What a bargain! Woo! To order today, call 1-800-GAY-BUTT. 1-800-GAY-BUTT. In 1989, Squidward Tentacles was sent over to America by the Soviet Union as a spy that was meant to gather intel on the American way of life. On Squidward's flight over to America, his plane sadly crashed into the Atlantic Ocean. This left 179 passengers dead at the site who drowned to death. Squidward was the only one who did not die on the flight because he was a squid. He saw nothing wrong with the landing of the flight because he's never been on a plane before. He's also a stupid fucking squid, so he didn't expect anything wrong with everyone dying. So he got out of the plane and just proceeded with his mission as normally would. Squidward's plane crash landed in what is known to the Bikini Bottom residents as Jellyfish Fields. Squidward got out of his plane and proceeded to go towards the town, thinking he finally had reached America. As a spy, Squidward had to make sure his plan stayed hidden to the naked eye, so he had to make himself integrate into the town as much as possible, so his negative motives would go unnoticed. To make money like a traditional commie, Squidward did not want to work, so he tried out being an artist and a part-time clarinet player for 2 years. Squidward's art did not get him enough purchases due to how subpar it was compared to other works on the market, so he decided to go to art school. At art school, Squidward's art teacher, Mr. McMoneybags, told him that his art wasn't bold and brash, but instead, it belonged in the trash.
How about this one? I call it bold and brash. More like belongs in the trash!
The teacher also told Squidward to be realistic, to pursue an art as a hobby and not a way to make a quick buck instead of working. To add insult to injury, Mr. McMoneybags told Squidward that he could not teach such a trash artist how to paint and kicked him out of school because of the simple fact that his art was so mediocre it made the school look bad. Squidward's clarinet playing days did not last long, considering he was mediocre at best at that as well. The little money he did make off of clarinet playing at small local concerts was not nearly enough to supplement him and pay for his mortgage and taxes on his house. The lack of finances made Squidward have to apply for any sort of work, so he got hired at the first place that would hire him. The desperation to find work and the lack of places to work led Squidward to settle for the only place that would hire him with his lack of qualifications. The Krusty Krab, a local business ran by a multimillionaire named Eugene Krabs, a crab known for his hatred of communism and unions. Eugene Krabs fought in both the Korean and Vietnam War in the United States Navy, fighting against and killing numerous commies and civilians over the course of his service. Eugene had a hatred for all things Soviet because of his years in war. Eugene's hatreds for commies meant Squidward had to be real careful about anything he said because he could lose his job or be killed by the killing machine known as Eugene Krabs the Commie Killer. Even though on the outside, Mr. Krabs seems like an American hero, he does have some skeletons in his closet. Mr. Krabs is a well-known murderer amongst the Bikini Bottom population. Krabs being a murderous being was well-known amongst almost everyone in Bikini Bottom, but no one said anything about his killings because of his ties with the Italian mob.
Yeah, it was really bad. People were disappearing left and right. It was terrifying. People felt like they couldn't go outside at night without Mr. Krabs, the Ripper, raping them.
Squidward knew if he made one slip up while working for Mr. Krabs, he'd be sleeping with the fishes. Krabs is such a ruthless killer that he even slaughtered his own uncle because he threatened to snitch on him to the feds if Eugene did not give him money. Eugene proceeded to bash his uncle in the face 27 times with a hammer and then knocked him unconscious. While he was unconscious, Krabs threw his uncle's body into a wood chipper and chopped it into tons of little pieces. Eugene, I need some money. Alright, Eugene, if you don't give me money, I will tell the feds.
Fucking pissing cocksucker.
We're two of a kind. We've both lost our luster. So that's what I taste like.
Eugene knew when he threw his uncle's body into a wood chipper, he'd be caught if he didn't dispose of the remains. So he later turned the body parts into patties and grilled them, and then served it to his daughter and his wife, who adored the meal. They told him that it was the best burger they ever had. The quality of Mr. Krabs' patties that he cooked for his family inspired him to open up a restaurant known as the Krusty Krab. This restaurant would become a great asset for Krabs because he can use it to launder money through. The Krusty Krab was an instant success. However, 2 years after it opened, Sheila Krabs, Mr. Krabs' wife, filed for divorce and threatened to take the Krusty Krab and Pearl with her in the divorce. A week after Sheila Krabs filed for divorce, she went missing. Everyone in the know believes Sheila Krabs was killed by Eugene. However, the authorities wrote down on the police report she was abducted by a fisherman. One thing is certain about Sheila Krabs' disappearance. She was most certainly eaten by someone, whether it is in Krabby Patty form or if she was boiled by a landlubber. We will never know. Squidward knew bitching about working his minimum wage job would put him on Eugene's hit list. He knew he could not complain about things such as working hours, pay, or benefits, because that would make him look like a true communist, lazy and wanting everything handed to them. Squidward knew if he said one thing that even seemed remotely like a socialist idea around Eugene, he would turn him into calamari. Not knowing what he could do at this point, Squidward just worked his job as one would normally work until 1999, 7 years after the fall of the Soviet Union, when Jim the Fry Cook quit his job due to Squidward making homosexual advances on him, plus the poor working conditions. Jim quitting his job made it so much easier for Squidward to be able to do his communist plots. Jim was way too smart, and he could detect what Squidward was doing and trying to do behind the scenes if he kept him around long enough. So he got rid of him and banked on the Krusty Krab hiring someone much less intelligent than Jim. The hiring of SpongeBob SquarePants was the best thing Mr. Krabs could have possibly done for the Krusty Krab. However, on paper, the hiring seemed like it would be awful for Squidward, considering SpongeBob and Patrick were his neighbors, and they've been annoying him and harassing him for years now. But SpongeBob can easily be manipulated by Squidward into doing anything he wanted, because SpongeBob wanted to be liked by Squidward. SpongeBob could be used as a potential pawn in an underground communist uprising in Bikini Bottom for Squidward. During his tenure at the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob became the perfect proletariat slave of Mr. Krabs. He was hardworking, always showed up early to work, and never complained one bit about his job. Squidward, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. But there's an issue where SpongeBob would do anything for Squidward to like him. Squidward used SpongeBob's low IQ and his desire to be liked by him to manipulate him and feed him communist propaganda. Soon enough, Squidward was able to touch SpongeBob enough to bring him to one of the Bikini Bottom's Communist Party meetings, where Squidward once again would be known as Comrade Squidwardo, and he'd also be speaking under his alias.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Hey, are you a fan of Chef Bojack? Well, if so, go check out my new merch line! That's right, Chef Bojack just released his new, very exclusive merch line on teesprings.com. We got so many cool practical items on our merch store. We got leggings for your thick-ass girlfriend. We got long sleeve shirts for those of you who cut yourselves. We got sweatshirts that keep you warm in the winter and also promote anti-meth messages. But besides the great items I just listed, don't forget to check out the other items we have on my merch store. And also, if you do order an item, send me a picture of you wearing it, preferably the yoga pants, and I will feature it in my next video. Link in the description, go buy it now. So as we all know in hindsight, Squidward was the leader of the underground Bikini Bottom Communist Party. So he was able to speak, but this would also mean people would follow him like sheep whenever he said anything. Comrade Squidwardo laid out his 3-step plan for a Bikini Bottom communist takeover. Step 1 of Comrade Squidwardo's master plan, a workers' strike. The workers' strike of the Bikini Bottom would completely halt the productivity of the town, leading to a lack of essential goods and services, with the intent of crippling small businesses. These strikes would not only get the public on the workers' side, but it would also lead them to believe capitalism's the reason the businesses failed. Step 2. A terrorist attack on the Krusty Towers. The second step was disguised as an attack on the established businesses of the Bikini Bottom after the strike. However, the intended purpose of the attack was not to destroy the Krusty Towers, or even capitalism for that matter. The attacks were actually intended as a personal destruction of Eugene Krabs, the commie killer, and everything he stands for. The biggest and final step of Comrade Squidwardo's plan to have a communist takeover of the Bikini Bottom was step 3, the assassination of King Neptune, which would lead to the communist takeover of Chairman Squidwardo.
My fellow comrades, if we follow our plan, we will succeed in our takeover of the Bikini Bottom. However, we must act quickly as a unit. If not, our plan will fail. Death to the tyrant Neptune!
October 12, 2001 was one of the worst days in Bikini Bottom history for Squidward Tentacles. A workers' strike of the Bikini Bottom Communist Party failed completely because we all know commies are lazy fucks who do not work. However, this did not stop the two commies who did work, Squidward and SpongeBob, from striking. Step 1 of Squidward's plan was a massive failure. Not only did no one strike, leading to a lack of media coverage that would get to the public, which would side them with the workers, but the KKK sniffed out that Squidward was behind the strike at the Krusty Krab and made him take a cut in pay, along with any sexual favors Krabs wanted him to do, in exchange for him not to take Squidward's life. The rage and resentment towards Mr. Krabs built up to an extreme boiling point, which would lead to the beginning of Step 2 of Squidward's plan. The Krusty Towers Hotel finally had finished its construction, and now it was time for its grand opening. As we know in the original anime, Squidward and SpongeBob are forced to work at the Krusty Towers once it opens. This was seen in the show as a real nuisance to Squidward. However, the Squidward we see here in this episode was just a guise to distract Krabs from the real sinister activities going on behind the scenes. You see, to an outsider with a small brain such as yourself, you might wonder why Squidward wanted this to happen. Well, for all of us big-brained intellectuals, it's clear as day why Squidward was this happy about it. Squidward working at the Krusty Towers meant he could easily scope out the property and find any weakness and openings to sneak into for when he commits his attack. The issue was, however, Squidward had no idea how to go through with such a terrorist attack, so he enlisted the help of one of the greatest terrorists in human history, Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi and Squidward strategically planned their attack on the Krusty Towers. Their first plan was to enlist the help of a local leukemia survivor named Caillou. But he was out blowing up some useless towers somewhere else in the world, so they had to go with Plan B. Plan B was to build a massive bathtub on the top floor of the Krusty Towers and fill it to the brim with all the water in India, and just wait for some dumbass to jump in the tub, causing the whole building to collapse. Now you might think, Bojack, all the water in India? That would be a little far-fetched, wouldn't it? Absolutely fucking not, you ignorant swine. Why do you think everything in India smells so fucking bad? They also wipe their asses with their left hand, because there's no fucking water. What other reason besides retardation would a culture become this disgusting by choice for?
No, I'm good.
Me too.
Wow! An indoor pool? Oh, this place is fancy!
Warning. Self-destruct signal. 3, 2.
I was there during the terrorist attacks on the Krusty Tower. I was the only fish I know who made it out alive. There was nothing but carnage and blood. But in that carnage I saw it. I saw Krabs the commie killer take the bodies of fish, the families, children. He shoved them all into a U-Haul, and he said something under his breath about shredding.
Squidward's attacks on the Krusty Tower were indeed successful. 900 fish died in the attack. With his attacks being successful and seemingly no one to blame besides the Krusty Tower's faulty structure, Krabs the commie killer might, for the first time ever, get legal punishment. In return for the success of their attack, Gandhi asked Squidward for one thing in return. Gandhi, for whatever reason, just wanted a single Krabby Patty because the fuckface was too stupid to find food anywhere in India, so he now had anorexia. Mr. Krabs looked like he'd finally get some justice for the years of murders and illegal activities he's done behind the scenes to keep his position of power. Eugene knew if the cops showed up too soon, he'd be royally fucked due to knowingly building a structure that was not up to code to shave off some cost. But this is when Krabs remembered, 1. The Bikini Bottom only had like 4 cops, so he didn't have to worry about them showing up too soon. 2. It would probably take forever for them to show up if they did at all. And 3. He could always just do the old wood chipper trick again to dispose of all the bodies. So with a seemingly divine intervention, every corpse that died in the collapse of the Krusty Towers disappeared, leaving Eugene a fish off the hook. So, this could be a severe violation of national security if we reveal this man's identity. Tonight, we have a special guest from the FBI who specializes in homeland security. The Bureau has asked us to distort the agent's voice so we do not compromise his identity. The man we are interviewing tonight is responsible for the busting of local serial terrorist and communist Squidward Tentacles.
Meow. 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 Meow.
With the collapse of the Krusty Towers, it looked like the only person who could get in trouble for the events that took place was Mr. Krabs himself. At least in Squidward's mind, that is. Squidward seemingly for the first time in his life had everything going in the right direction for him, and soon enough he figured he would be the king of the ocean. The exact method of killing King Neptune was voted on by the members of the Bikini Bottom Communist Party. There was an open forum of suggestions on creative ways to kill Neptune. One fish suggested putting a bomb detonator in his crown. Another fish suggested to put a bomb in his daughter, Princess Mandy, and detonate it when Neptune got close enough to her. The plan to put a bomb in Princess Mindy was feasibly impossible, so they went with the third and final suggestion. The squad would need a plan that would allow them to kill Neptune from far away. Squidward decided on a plan that would not only kill Neptune, but every non-air breathing member of the Bikini Bottom, by pulling the ocean's plug. He and his team would wear water helmets to keep them alive while every other sea creature died of suffocation. With this plan, the communists would not only take over the ocean, they would also have killed anyone who had put them down in the past. Every commie in the crowd knew the objective for their magnum opus. They were going to sneak out in the middle of the night as a unit to pull the plug on the ocean in the dark so no one would see them performing the act. There is no obvious loose ends to tie up before Squidward committed the final act of his master plan. Sponges. Just like little kids, they absorb everything. Also just like little kids, at some point the information absorbed has to be let out by the sponge. Whether it is information that can be detrimental to the sponge itself, or even national security, the average sea sponge cannot be trusted for its own good with classified information. Now, don't get me wrong, the sea sponge can mentally withstand the urge not to let secrets spill out of its body. However, there's a certain point when the sea sponge cannot hold the thoughts anymore physically because the threat of the sponge bursting with too much information. This leak of information can happen at any point in the day, making the sponge very vulnerable to letting a secret slip. For days, SpongeBob did not go out into public till he let the secret out of his pores with no one around. SpongeBob spent days shut into his house to make sure the secret never slipped out. To keep the secret as hidden as possible, SpongeBob shut all of his windows to make sure nothing slipped out. Mr. SquarePants was smart enough to keep the information from the public. However, he forgot one thing. He had a roommate. From what we can gather, SpongeBob never told anyone about the planned assassination of King Neptune while conscious, but that doesn't mean he didn't leak the plot out in his sleep. Very little is known about Mr. SquarePants' roommate, however, it is heavily suggested he had some sort of connection to the FBI. The time had finally come for Squidward Tentacles. It was now officially his day of retribution. The commies had gathered all the equipment needed. There's nothing left to do besides assemble the manpower and wait for the cover of darkness. Without garnering any suspicion from the locals, Squidward was able to discreetly transfer his team without anyone noticing to the ocean plug. The team rode in 2 different black vans with the headlights out to further mask them and their plan. The team arrived at the unguarded ocean plug. No man or fish was spotted at the scene of the sight. With the most deadly weapon in the ocean now in their possession, without hesitation, Squidward and his communist cult pulled the plug on the ocean, potentially killing every other form of sea life besides themselves.
Where am I?
Meow. Meow. Meow.
No, this can't be.
Meow. Meow.
No, you can't be serious. How could my own boss do this to me?
Hello, I like money.
Meow. Meow. Meow.
No, no.
The verdict is in. In an unanimous decision by the jury, the people have found Squidward Tentacles guilty of treason and terrorism. Squidward Tentacles, I sentence you to death by capitalism. With the world's most dangerous fugitive now dead, Americans can rest easy knowing that Squidward Tentacles will never overthrow their government. I am Chef Bojack, and this is a presentation by the History Channel.